Thomas Jefferson has been a long time, has been a hero of mine, and it was a thrill to be able to go to Monticello just a few years ago and visit the place where he lived and learn a little more about him. And when I heard of Marilyn Smith, our next presenter, I don't know, it just clicked right away that it seems to me that's somebody I wanted to hear. Sometimes people ask me, how do you pick your speakers? And I said, it's easy. I just pick the ones I want to hear. It's not exactly the case, but we do try to get a broad spectrum, and we try to get the truth, whether I agree with them or not. But anyway, when I heard that, in this case, that's a different kind of channeling to me. When I heard she channels and brings through Thomas Jefferson, and of course I believe that sort of thing is quite possible. I'm not against that. I just, some of the other stuff is kind of non-specific and so forth, and that's all right too. But I just kept thinking, you know, and I'm thinking here now, if we all said, and I know Marilyn is saying that same thing too, come on, Tom, come in, Tom. But let's welcome from the wilds of Kingston, Arkansas, wherever that is, Marilyn Smith, as she brings her message tonight of what will be, what we should have. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, how's that? Oh, that's good. Good evening. The wilds of Arkansas is about halfway up a mountain in the northwest Ozarks, not too far from Eureka Springs and south of Branson. You probably recognize those names. I'm sort of out in the middle of nowhere. I actually been in Houston, Texas for many years, and then about 3 years ago I was on vacation and I got this funny little urge to go to Arkansas. And when I got there, I had some very interesting experiences which let me know I needed to move there. Of course, my instant reaction was, you know how you get divided between, you know, the ego and the soul and the higher self and that. All of a sudden, this energy I was feeling, and my left brain was going, oh my God, no, I'm going to have to sell my house and move. And the other half of me was going, yes, yes, you found it. This is where you're supposed to be. This is your purpose. And the other part was going, oh, no, I don't want to have to do this. So, but I knew in my heart that's what I needed to do. And it took me 2 years, but I did it. A number of people have asked me how I started working with Thomas Jefferson. It's hard to give a specific time because I didn't realize at the time, but I've been working with him all my life. And you know things in retrospect. It wasn't until 10 or 12 years ago before I was aware of who I was working with, and then I didn't believe it. So I went to Washington and had an experience at the Jefferson Memorial, because I'm telling myself, no, this is ridiculous, don't be silly. I've been channeling for a number of years, but I was used to channeling the spiritual beings, the angels, and Archangel Michael. And I work with the Diva Kingdom and the plants and merge with them, and I've been doing that for a long time. So it never crossed my mind that anything like this would come up. So when I started, I have some friends who can see. And once in a while when I'd be teaching or talking or channeling or something, somebody would say, I swear I saw Thomas Jefferson standing by you. And I'm going, nah, why would he be doing that? So anyway, one thing led to another, and I went to Monticello, and I went to Washington, just to see what I could feel and pick up or what. So one day I was with some other people, and I was standing at the Jefferson Memorial, and I'm looking at that statue going, could I be? Nah. You know, the who me syndrome. So I got this sudden urge, and I've always been hard on myself all my life because I get these weird urges and impulses, and I leap up and do things I can't understand, and I don't know why I do them. It's taken me years to find out that that's the way you're supposed to do things. I thought that was wrong, and there was something the matter with me. So I got this urge. I had to take a picture of the Jefferson statue. And of course, there were tourists all around. So I'm standing there with the camera, and there were people in front, And I was with some people, and they're going, Marilyn, come on, we have to go. I'm going, wait a minute, I have to take a picture. They're going, well, come on, we haven't got time, it's getting dark. I have to take a picture. So I stood there, and the people in front of the statue moved away. So I took the picture, went, oh, okay. And then I was satisfied, and I left. After I got back to Houston and developed the pictures, what a shock I got. Because there was a white spiral light of energy going right through Jefferson's statue. And then I heard him say, I've been trying to tell you. Will you believe me now? Okay. So then, knowing that I have the picture with me, if anyone, I have it over on my table. If anyone was wondering what that is on table 22. So, knowing how we felt about the garden, and my love is gardening. I just go crazy with plants and flowers. You know, I just want to roll in them and lay in them and everything else, and I know that's the way he felt, so I thought, oh, well, okay, he's going to involved here here I am on a mountain, and he's going to help with the garden. And then I heard someone else say that they'd been hearing from Jefferson something about political stuff, so I said to myself, oh, good. He's going to work with me on the garden, and this other person can do the political and the government stuff. Was I naive? So when I was in Arkansas, I began running across, you know how these little coincidences and accidents happen. I began running across little articles about this and that, about the government and the political stuff. And then I read some things that really disturbed me. So I thought, oh, this is awful. People have to know about this. I've got to start learning more about it, and I've got to start telling people. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, here comes this energy. And here comes Jefferson. And he said, well, I've been waiting for you to make up your mind, because he said it had to be my choice to do this. He wasn't going to mention it, wasn't going to say anything, wasn't going to do anything. I had to make the decision that I wanted to go further with it and know more about it and talk about it. And then when I did that, then he began coming through with more politically oriented articles. Although if any of you know his background, he has a wide variety of topics that he will and can talk about. So with no further ado, let's let him get to talking. It'll just take me a moment because I've been doing this a long time. I've gotten rather accustomed to him. He's a little different than the other ones that I've worked with. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been pondering on the name of this meeting, Global Sciences Congress. I think Congress is a very appropriate name. What I've been thinking is, would that the Congress in Washington were filled with such as you. Then we would not have the problems that we are having now. I am honored to be invited to such an august gathering of colleagues, because whether you realize it or not, we are all heading in the same direction, each in our different ways. I knew when I was in the physical form over 200 years ago that this was a potential. I had hoped it would not occur. When I was in the physical form, I didn't know then what I know now. I knew that we had a purpose. Freedom and freedom of the mind and the freedom to be yourself has always been my prime motive for everything. Not only in that lifetime, but others I had, always had the same underlying motive, and that was freedom for all people. Freedom to be yourself. From my perspective now, I was a very spiritually oriented person at that time, although many people in history do not know this. In fact, I've noticed much that has been written about me has been taken out of context, twisted, and changed around. It's interesting that people who believe one thing and people who believe the other both use my words to expound their point of view. But some of this information is taken out of context. If someone read the entire letter that I wrote or the entire document that I wrote in the context in which it was written, then I think the meaning would be more clear. What is happening now, we are at a time when the entire planet is in great difficulties. With that consideration, I would say I have good news and I have bad news. The bad news is that we do have trying times ahead of us. The good news is that there is an ultimate purpose behind it all. Everyone in this room has their part of the puzzle. It's as if the divine plan is, as someone put it earlier today, a giant jigsaw puzzle. And each one of you is a piece of the puzzle. Everyone here who has spoken or presented ideas is correct for their piece of the puzzle from their perspective. Each of you has your part to play, and all of the parts and pieces are needed to create the whole. Those of you in this room are those who will create the new world and the new earth. There are many different facets to it. There's the financial area, there's the medical area, there's the religious area, there's the government, there's education. All of these different parts and pieces are equally important. Education must be changed. The medical profession must be changed. The government must be changed. What is happening is the energy that is coming from the other dimensions now, because as most of you know, we're in the process of shifting to other dimensions. Anything that is not operating from love will have to change or fall of its own weight. The new energy will not sustain the old system. The systems have to be changed. Everything now in the new world must be heart-centered, come from the heart. That is not always easy to do. When I was in the physical form, it was a constant balance between the logic and the heart. And it's not either or. You don't choose between one or the other. The trick is to use the heart to feel what is right, to feel what is right for you. And then with your logical mind, then you can figure out how to do it. The other thing to do is learn to follow that inner guidance, to follow what feels right for you. The whole new world will be based on feeling. We are talking about going into a whole new way of life. Civilization is, some of the people say, the world as you know it is coming to an end. Not physically. The world as we know it is coming to an end, but not in the way that it is generally interpreted. You must believe we are coming into a positive, loving world. Now, not everyone will experience that, because as many of you know, your world is created by what you focus on. And as the energies shift, and there are those of us here now who are already experiencing this in some degree. I know my friend here has had experiences of this nature. When you focus on something, you are magnetizing that energy to you. So if you focus on the doom and gloom, you will have that. If you focus on joy and happiness, you will have that. But one of the difficulties I have encountered is that the two areas, the people who are of a scientific nature or a traditional nature or a orthodox religious nature, have beliefs that are not always compatible with the unseen world. On the other hand, there are those of the unseen world, the other dimensions where I reside, that don't want to deal with what's in the physical world. What we must do is combine the two. That's the same thing put in a scientific manner, and I did consider myself a scientist, in a scientific manner that's combining both sides of the brain. My definition of scientist, as I considered myself, was not the definition that is known as science today. My definition of science is search for knowledge, and that could be in any field, any kind of knowledge, just the search for knowledge. So when you learn to live your life from feeling and change your belief patterns, release things from the past, and learn to operate from your feeling and on impulse, then you will be well on your way to fulfilling whatever your purpose is. Each and every one of you in this room is necessary. Each and every one of you is a major part of what is to come in the future. Because without your help, it cannot be done. What is referred to as the mainstream population are very much embroiled in the system. They are embroiled with the mind control, and that's another subject I will get into. And they have not reached the awareness level to step away from that and back away. Some of the metaphysical groups and the spiritual groups that I've spoken with or have been published in have been concerned when I mentioned things going on in the world and the problems that are occurring with the government, with the medical profession, which is a more major thing than many realize, as my friend here knows, because she is a part of it. So those of you who are aware are the ones who must stand up and speak out and spread the word, you might say. You must tell people the time is over to sit quietly back in the corner and not say anything. There's not that much time left. When you feel an urge to say something, then say it. If you feel an urge to do something, then do it. I will tell you a little story on my friend here, which she has given me permission to do. The place where she works is a very conservative pharmacy and medical clinic. For a couple of years, she has been very quietly biting her tongue and not saying things when people say things that she knows could be harmful to them, like talk about, oh, I'm getting old, this and that. But for the last few months, all of a sudden, she is opening her mouth and saying things. In fact, there is some joke at work about, we better put a duct tape over her mouth before she loses her job. But this is the point that I wish to make. When you get an urge to do something, that is your higher self telling you, say it, do it. Because if you all keep quiet, now those here who are the speakers know and have been speaking out, but those of you out there must also do that. Everyone in this room, I am asking to help and speak out. Because without your help, the word will not get out. One of the things that has been occurring is partly because of the apathy on the part of the general public. That has been very disturbing. It's understandable because of the situation we're in, the programming, the mind control, all of the energy and frequencies that are being broadcast. Actually, I thought it was difficult in my time. You have a much more difficult task ahead of you than I did, so I honor you greatly. In my time, there was no mass communication, television, computers, and all of that. There was no electronics to bother people. There was nothing like microwave transmission. There was none of this. So that was not a concern. What we had to do was the basics. Today, you have a much larger task ahead of you, but on the other hand, you also have more help than we had then. With the mass communication, you can communicate with each other. You get news instantly. You know what's going on, well, in some instances. The whole purpose, as I said earlier, there is a purpose behind this. Because when I started talking about this and writing about this, some objected, saying, oh, this is negative, this is fear-based, I do not want to hear this. My answer to that is no, I don't feel it is. I call it courage-based. Knowledge is power. One of my focuses, education, teaching, learning, studying. For any of you who know much of my background, I spent many, many hours a day in study. I read and studied law, philosophy, history, classics, books, mathematics, physics, everything. Particularly in the areas of law, there have been movements in Congress to change the Constitution. Some people think that's a good idea. I do not, except under one condition, that the people learn the tricks of the law before you get into changing anything like this. Most people do not know. If you look at the original Declaration of Independence, United States of America is written with a small u. How many have noticed that? That makes a difference legally. Before anything is changed in the Constitution or the major laws, understand what you are doing. In this way, those in Congress have been able to fool the public in one way by making the laws so complex they can't even understand them, and in the other way, when they simplify it by using language that the average person does not understand. You must understand the law profession uses a different dictionary than we do. When you say, or look in the dictionary, that red is red, if when Congress writes a law and they say that red is green, then when you see a law that says red, you will think red. But they mean green. You must understand that the meanings of the laws are not what they appear. It is very important that before any changes are made, you fully understand what is going on behind them. Learn to follow your feelings, your discernment, when you see something on television or hopefully in person. If you get a bad feeling here, don't let your logic decide who to vote for. Do it from here and from here. The logical mind will lead you astray because what is going on with the frequency is working on your logical mind. You must release the logical mind. This is vital. Study the law. Read the books. As someone said today, Robert Morningsky, as I recall, don't believe anything. Or as it says on television, trust no one. Trust yourself. Trust only you. Only trust your feelings. Study, research, look everything up. Learn as much as you can because knowledge is power. Those of you who are talking about going back in history and doing research, that is a wonderful thing to do. That's how I did and came up with much of what I did in my time. Another thing many people do not realize, a lot of the basic principles when we founded this country were based on information we did learn from the Native Americans, or Indians, as they were called at that time. There were tribes in the northeastern United States that had a confederation of tribes where the chieftains all sat around and agreed. Mr. Franklin met with them. Some of them came to Washington. He did this before my time, as he was a lot older than I was. But as time went on, I developed an interest in the same philosophies that they presented. This information is not in any of your history books. So the background of this country was well thought out. I have noticed that those who are in control of the media now, those who we see on television discussing the founding of the country and the Constitution, and I find books being written about how it is outdated, it is antique, it must be changed, the founding fathers didn't really mean this, they were that. Either it is intentional, that they are changing your perception of the founding of this country, or they are so corrupt or in their quest for power, they don't understand that there can be and was a group of people who truly believe from the heart that freedom was the most important thing that you could possibly have. When we signed that document, it ended by saying, we pledge our lives, our honor, our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. And by God, we meant that. We meant it from every fiber in our being. That has been lost, but we can get it back. But the important point I want to make behind all of this, there is more to this than just freedom in the world for this country in the world. There is an underlying cause, an underlying reason for it. And it is called soul evolution. I know you've heard that term before. To evolve, to reach the level of ascension, to reach the other dimensions where you're going, it is vital that you stand tall, know who you are, and claim your power. What better way to claim your power than standing up to the largest power on the planet? You have chosen a difficult task, but it is well chosen. When people learn to stand up and say, enough is enough, I will not do this, I will only accept this or that. And when enough of them do it, and they see that they are succeeding in some way, when they have even a small victory, then it will increase their confidence, it will increase their sense of power. And as more and more people do it and gather together and say, no, we will not accept this, we will not put up with this, we will not allow this, then they will feel more and more powerful. And this is a spiritual power. I'm not referring to a physical force or anything like that. And as this spiritual power grows on the planet, then the world will be changed because the consciousness will be one of power and love. But just doing that is not enough. It also requires action. So what we have here is a combination of spiritual growth and action on the physical plane. I'll tell you another little story of my friend's experience. Many years ago in Houston, she was involved in the Hands Across America, if you recall that from many years ago. She managed to be the one who would set up getting Houston up to Dallas. So she arranged chartered buses, built a sign at the Dome Stadium, the Houston basketball team was getting involved. All of these things were coming about. So she knew she was going to need help. And there was a large group, a meditation group nearby that she knew. So she called them because she was going to put in banks of telephones and have T-shirts made, big thing. So she called them on the telephone and said, I need some help, and explained what we were doing and said, could you help us? And she was told, well, let me ask the group, we'll call you back. So the next day, she received a phone call, and they said, yes, the group has agreed to help you. I said, wonderful. And they said, tell us what time the thing is, and we'll get together and meditate on it for you. Well, she didn't rip the phone out of the wall, but it was a close call. So my point is that both physical action and inner action is needed, a combination of both. I didn't use the term meditation in any of my writings. I didn't know that word or use it, but I did a lot of what I called pondering. I spent a lot of time by myself just pondering in the garden and thinking, putting together ideas. A suggestion I would have for recreating leaders would be not to choose what we know of now as politicians. One of the difficulties we have in getting what I call quality people is the media, and sometimes the way the mainstream public just love something to grab onto, to jump on. Any little thing they find wrong in someone's life. There's not a person on the planet that has a perfect life, that has done nothing wrong. The highly intelligent, educated people who would make good leaders wouldn't go near that kind of situation. So you lose the high quality people. Somehow that has to be brought out. I remember it was simpler in my time. Life was simpler in some ways and more difficult in others. But even then, I had more freedom in my day than you do now. Even before we fought for freedom. Because the Queen and England and the government were a long distance away. Most of the people at the beginning of this country went about their daily lives never even thinking about the government. They didn't even realize they had one in most cases. Intellectually, they knew there was somebody out there doing something, but it had no effect on their everyday life. Now, if our ultimate purpose here is to evolve to our highest level, to our highest potential, I used to use the term be all that you can be until I was reminded that that's the motto of the military. I decided I better use some other words. Perhaps I would say, reach your highest potential. That is why you are here, is the ultimate bottom line. You cannot reach your highest potential if you're living in an environment that does not allow you to follow your inner guidance, your impulses, your soul's desires. When you feel an urge to do something, it is necessary that you have the freedom to get up and go do it. When you feel an urge to call someone or to do something, it is necessary that you have the ability to do that. So a lack of freedom is more damaging than what it appears on the surface. Even though you do not wish to be slaves, you do not wish to be tied down, everyone has a yearning to be free. But the yearning for total freedom is coming from the soul, your higher self, the divine part of you. Because the divine creator is free, and you are a child of the divine creator, and as such are created free. And when I wrote those words, I sincerely meant them. And if each person understands how necessary it is to be free, I ask that you do whatever it takes in studying and learning. You cannot correct the system, you cannot do anything if you don't understand what's going on, because those who are in charge have more knowledge of the system than you do. One of the major difficulties I had in my time was with the banks. Does that surprise anyone? Our biggest problem, Mr. Washington and Mr. Hamilton wanted a central bank. I did not. I lost. We did succeed after quite a few more years in eliminating that, but then after the Civil War, it was right back again. I had a grand vision of freedom and what the world could be like. And I felt that this country was pristine land that people could come to. But I also learned that human nature being what it is, there were problems right from the beginning. I was a strong advocate of religious freedom. Everyone is free to be themselves, to believe what they choose. But yet the state of Massachusetts, Puritanism was the state religion. The state of Virginia, the Church of England was the state religion. Other religions couldn't do their thing. It took me 10 years to get that corrected. But the ultimate thing we must teach people is to take responsibility for their own lives. All of this is about claiming your power means I am responsible for my life. I don't expect the government to take care of me. The government was never meant to take care of the people. One thing I want to make clear, this is not supposed to be a democracy. That term has been misused and told the people over and over again. If you remember your Pledge of Allegiance, it says this republic. Do you all know the difference between a republic and a democracy? There is a big difference. In a democracy, it means majority rule. Well, if that is the case, what happens to the minority? They don't have freedom. A republic means each individual, no matter what, has total freedom to be who they are as long as they do not harm another person. Almost every law on the books today is unconstitutional. No one has noticed. My friend here has discovered to her shock and asking other people, this information is not taught in the schools anymore. It has been a very gradual thing. I assume you've heard the story of cooking the frog. That's an old story, but it applies. You can't boil the frog by throwing it into hot water because it jumps out. So you throw it into cool water and it gets comfortable. Then you little by little turn up the heat. The frog gets lazy. The frog gets comfortable. The frog is taken care of. By the time the water is hot enough to cook the frog, it's too late. It can't get out. Well, guess what stage we're at? We're cooked. Thought I should throw in a little humor. This is getting a little serious. Remember, humor is a major part of this too. We do have a serious task ahead of us. And when I say us, I mean us, because I and the other, what you call founding fathers, are involved with this country and have been. We might have left it physically, but energetically, no, we never left. Because this country is our dream, our vision, and we will not stop, and we will not back off, and we will continue. What we did 200 years ago was just the planting of the seed, the beginning of it. We must get back to the way it was. We must put it where it's supposed to be. In order to do that, everyone must learn, be educated, be dedicated, committed, and each follow it in your own way. Those who are working on science and healing projects may not deal with the physical, with the spiritual aspects, but that's okay. They don't have to. Each of them is doing the part they're meant to do, because all of these aspects are important. We need those who understand the monetary system. The monetary system is a total fraud. How many of you understand that there is no national debt? It's created on a computer. The income tax is a fraud. It's just created to pay the national debt, because the Constitution said only the government has the right to coin and create money. They betrayed us when they gave that right to the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not federal. The Federal Reserve Bank is a privately owned banking system. Most of you here probably know this. If not, you need to start studying. The laws are being ignored. The government is behaving like a spoiled child, out of control. And you all are the parents. It is time to stand up and get America back to the way it's supposed to be. Do it spiritually, with energy, with spreading the word, waking people up. It is incredible to me, and a lot of this has to do with the education. So few people really see what is happening and what is going on. My friend here met someone who had no idea and got upset when she told them that our money is not backed by gold. Where have some of the people been? What world are they living in? True, it is not easy to have one foot in one world and one in another. But see, this is where we are headed. This is what we are trying to create. We're trying to go to the next dimension. We're trying to create heaven on earth. We're trying to create, or intend to create, a new world. The golden age we talk about, it cannot be done without everyone participating. I can't do it from where I am. It takes someone in physical form to ground the energy, to bring it through, to pass on the information. It is vital that you study and learn. One important point I wish to make, though, some of the information you will be learning as you learn here at this Congress can appear negative, can be frightening, can sound like there's no hope. There are a couple of things to remember about this. When the knowledge is important, but the trick to it is detach emotionally from it, because when you get emotional and upset and angry, then that feeds the negative energy, which helps prolong the problem. It took my friend a while to get to that point, but back up from it. But knowing what is going on is important, but do not get embroiled in it. It is the same situation as if you see someone going to go over a waterfall on a river, you don't jump in after them, you throw them a line. You have to be on solid ground to throw out that line to bring people into safety. You can't do it if you jump in with them. So watch your emotions. Keep centered within yourself. Stand on firm ground. Claim your power and stand tall, because you all are the leaders of the new world. Every person in here, or you wouldn't be in this room. We must recreate the America that was meant to be. With my help, of course. I will have time for some questions, what time we have left. I have been told we're doing a workshop on Monday, which I would dearly love, because whoever knows my background, one of my favorite occupations was a lively philosophical or whatever discussion with a group of like-minded friends. And I feel all of you here are like-minded friends, and I would dearly enjoy conversing with you on a more personal basis. Yes, madam.
Thank you for coming. My question is, I'd like to have your comments on a one-world government.
One world government is not what we had in mind. Understand, there are two different kinds of one world order. What is referred to as the one world government and world order now is generally meant one government dominating and tyrannizing everyone else. What we had in mind was everyone remaining in their own place, their own culture, their own desires, their own habits, their own beliefs, but yet cooperating together of their own free will in a loving, cooperative manner. So global government doesn't mean government in the sense that it is being interpreted now. No, we do not wish a one world government of dictatorship. One world government means all the people working together in harmony and love and in cooperation and compromise. But no, not one person in charge or one country or anything in charge of anyone else. Freedom means every single individual, with no exception, is free to do as he or she feels, as long as they harm no one else. We should not have laws requiring seat belts. We should not need driver's licenses. All of this has gradually come upon this country, and most people don't even realize it's unconstitutional. Many people don't even know what the Constitution says. They are so conditioned to little by little, taking away a freedom, which people say, well, it'll prevent accidents. There needs to be. People won't get killed if there's a law that makes them wear seat belts. If a person wants to get killed, that's their responsibility. If I want to jump off a bridge, that's my responsibility and my choice. Everyone must make their own choices, their own decisions, and completely take charge of their own life. That is what this is all about. And the people have become too amenable to looking to the government for help. One of the things that must be done, though, this culture does not treat the elderly and the older people very well. There are other cultures who do better. I would suggest that we look to the Native American cultures for lessons on how to do that. Because as people get older, they do not become useless. They become wiser, and everyone can use that knowledge and mature wisdom. I know when I became old, I didn't get stupid. Anyone else? I can keep talking. I would hope that this evening I would inspire you to stand up. Yes, sir.
Yes, what do you think about this Iraqi situation?
There is much more there that is behind the scenes. I do feel there are a number of factors involved. At this time, I don't feel that anything will occur. But on the other hand, many people are not aware of the part that this country played in what is going on over there. The idea of biological warfare is just beyond my comprehension. It is abominable to me to think that any human being could behave in that manner. However, many of you here may not be aware. I hear talk of Iraq using its biological weapons. Who do you think sold them to them? So it's all a hodgepodge, and all of the truth has not yet come out, but it will be. Yes, sir.
As a nation, why should we continue to perpetuate poverty in the midst of plenty?
We should not. The idea is, if everyone is free, they will be able to provide for themselves. There will be a transition period because there are people who have not learned to take care of themselves, and this is where the education comes in. My heart aches when I see the people who do not have enough to eat, do not have money to buy medicine. But setting up programs to give that to them is not the answer either. You don't give them the food, you teach them how to grow it. That is a maxim that goes way back. So education is very vital. There will be a transition period to help them learn to stand on their own 2 feet, to teach and educate them and give them the psychological support that they need. Teach them that they are wonderful, magnificent beings. They are not less than anyone else because they're poor. Because there's no human being on earth that's any more or less than any other. Everyone is equal.
There was a man by the name of Jesus. He left us a formula. The formula was love and serve each other.
Exactly.
By each other, he meant every each other.
Exactly.
Then if we work together to build a better world, we can do it.
Exactly so. How many of you know there is a book called the Jefferson Bible? This was not published during my lifetime. I would not allow it. I knew better. But there is a very small book where I went through the Bible in several languages, including the original Greek and Hebrew, and took out just Jesus' words, his lessons of loving and serving, and put it in a separate book and took out everything else, because it all comes down to the same thing. Love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. And when the world operates from that perspective, there will be no more problems. And understand that when everyone learns to follow their heart, there will also be no more problems, because divine guidance comes through the heart, not the brain. When everyone operates from the heart, there will be no problems, because everyone will be operating in love. And that is where we are headed, and that is what we must do. There are difficult times ahead, but by remembering that and operating from that perspective, then we will do it. Sir?
I wonder if you would share with us how, in the light of your extremely enlightened beliefs for the time in which you lived, you justified in your own heart the keeping of slaves.
I did not. I knew that was a problem. I did put the freeing of slaves in the original Declaration of Independence, but Congress scratched it out, as they scratched other things out. I wanted to abolish the practice and succeeded in doing it in some of the newer states. My own personal affairs, in those days, political figures were not paid like they are now. So in the running for office, well, I didn't run, actually. I just let others take care of it. But in the going back and forth, managing my household, what slaves I did have, in truth, didn't really belong to me. By the time of my death, I was bankrupt. So I actually was very much pained by it, but felt entrapped because I could not release them because they belonged to the creditors. If you will look back through my writings, I made some statement about, I tremble for my country when I know that God is just, because I knew that the day would come in the future that there would be some action taken to abolish that. We did what we could at that time, but putting it in perspective of where we were at that time, we did all we could do, and like Congress today, there were some things we tried to do that got voted against. I really did not like it too much when they edited my writings, but I did not have total control of that. But I did succeed in the beginning and in doing some things. But yes, I understand your question, and I agree. That has always been a botherment.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. We have a party called the Natural Law Party now, and it seems to be based in many ways on your teachings and philosophy. Dr. John Hagelin, who heads the party as presidential candidate, very much admires your work and your philosophy. And I wondered if you could look ahead a little bit for us and see what the future of that party might be in this government where we just seem to have a two-party system and other parties are having a lot of difficulty getting heard.
That needs to change. The two parties we really don't have two parties. It only appears that way. The two are the same.
Yes.
Yes, I have just a moment. Sir?
We as Americans, we have on our currency, "In God We Trust."
Mm-hmm.
And at the top of the pyramid on that same currency, we have an all-seeing eye, or a single eye.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it said that the currency of the universe is our emotion of love.
Yes.
Could you speak to us just a moment on how do we get beyond the habit of seeing each other with our two eyes and recognizing the differences and coming to that which we do have in common?
It's a matter of consciousness. How can you teach someone to love? Either they do or they do not.
You said remember. When we get to remember to love, how is it that we enable ourselves to remember that?
First, you must love yourself. And as you do that, you must release all of the guilt and the fears and all of the baggage that everyone is carrying around. It is a time-consuming process because you have been taught since the moment you were born that you were a sinner, were bad, were not good. So you must make an effort to release. I would say that everything from this moment back that you have believed, throw it away and start fresh. Whatever method you find to do that would be quite helpful, because that is the bottom line, is love.
Thank you.
And now I must go. I thank you for your kind attention.
I wonder if you felt the chills that I felt as he came through with so many things that are akin to us. Thank you so much, Marilyn. Thank you so much.